We eat, ease, puff, ooh, puff, though, the they, the. What is there to appreciate about humanity? We eat, ease, puff, foo, puff, zo, zv, zed. Are you satisfied by the conclusion? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, zv, zed. What will you be doing this Tuesday at 6:58 a.m. Pacific time, our December 21st, 2021? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, the zed. What sacred meal with the drink will you be having for the night closest to it, the sunset closest to it? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, zv, zed. What will these foods mean? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, zv, zed. What will be the goal of it? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, zv, zed. What verses and stories and artistic forms have you selected for yourself? We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zo, zv, zed. With the black sun above, turning clockwise. With the sun cross below, turning counterclockwise. The descent ends and the ascent begins. And we delve into mythology that stretches back probably farther than the megaliths that find their ruins in Hyperborea. Megaliths that go back 700,000 years in sizes that exceed what has been found elsewhere in the world in some cases. Certain symbols, as we have seen, find their remnants in ancient scratchings and stone piles. Going back far enough that we just don't know. But it is the darkest moment. And for other people, because they're on the other hemisphere, they will experience it as the brightest time of year. But either way, Nox et Lux, Lux et Nox. It's a regenerating, a shifting of direction sort of moment. They have been watching you and already know what you're capable of. A dark place becomes clear as the wonders visit from more than above. The journeys and training relates you to the land and its tools with a grace beyond what humans could have left as a trace. By platinum I endure, by bronze is my glowing nature, by lead I am shielded in this cosmic radiance. By tin I serve beyond my desires and constructions of consciousness. With iron, the strength of what is in my hand has become me. With gold, I remain true to more than my honor. With copper, I realize the beauty of nature's thresholds. With silver, my separateness is smoothed out in the revelations that we are incarnating more and more. An order brought about by our sacrifices as perceived and perceiver. There among the undisturbed creatures of winter, we become their disassociated company as they've gone way past the beginning of being your teacher. Welcome your causal companion into your character with your kindred. Now, obviously these things, like this snowflake obsidian point, this, with the silver chain, of course, and the pentagram, the Solitor Amdia Haliza Balator Baloni Hali Hara. I mean, it doesn't say it in the middle of that. But this is, that's him. That means what you want too. And you've seen in the graphics the but this is my winter ring. So I'm going to return here to this spot that is in a more secluded area of the backyard. And I'm going to involve myself in, in the evening. This looks west, more or less. Well, you notice that how the one candle to the other candle is not quite pointing towards the sun, because that's, it's approximately oriented west. But this is the spot that's consecrated for this rite. And I'll bring out the candles. Candle at the bottom of the screen could represent nourishment, certain wood related smells, pine, bayberry is, there should be a bayberry candle here. Again, some of the meanings will appear as we go on. With the darkest time of year, of course, it completely makes sense that I'm using a cup that represents the death, because, obviously it's getting darker and brown and, all that stuff going on here. But that's the view out of the north. For the most part, I'm going to be facing the sun wheel stone here. And I don't ever banish. So there's that. So some of the verses that I select, you may like something next to it, but that's not really my point. I've selected something very specific, and in what we call Genesis 15:17, when the sun set and it was very dark, there appeared a smoking oven and a flaming torch, which passed between those pieces. So obviously I'm going to try to involve some terms that connect us to the whole seasonal thing. And so Ezekiel 12:6-12. Of course, in the ritual, I'll be going over Aramea, and then Greek, and then Arabic with my selections. But here I'm giving you the translations. And so Ezekiel 12:6-12. Okay. In the morning, the word of God as a noun and verb came to me, O mortal. Did not the house of the strivers of God, that rebellious breed, ask you, what are you doing? Say to them, thus said God as a noun and verb, thus said divinity. Okay, there's a translation, threw me off a bit. This pronouncement concerns the prince in Jerusalem and all the house of the strivers of God, who are in it, say, I am a portent for you. As I have done, so it shall be done to them, and they shall go into exile, into captivity, and the prince among them shall carry his gear on his shoulder. As he goes out in the dark, he shall break through the wall in order to carry his gear out through it. He shall cover his face, because he himself shall not see the land with his eyes. And so the the daughters of Israel, the sons of Israel, that sort of talk. Well, who are the children of those who are actually fitting those words? That kind of changes from time to time. But okay, so in the morning, the word of divinity came to me. So I said 6 through 12, right? So before their eyes, carry it on your shoulder, take it out in the dark and cover your face, that you may not see the land, for I make you a portent of the house of Israel. Notice how dark on both sides. Take it out in the dark and cover your face, so you may not see the land, for I make you a portent to the house of Israel. I did just as I was ordered. I took out my gear by day as gear for exile, and in the evening I broke through the wall with my own hands. In the darkness I carried the gear out on my shoulder, carrying it before their eyes. In the morning the word. Okay, so yeah, that the darkest quarter of the year is between the two darknesses. And well, I'm fumbling a little bit with my attempt to explain this, but so Psalms 104:20, right? And you bring on darkness, and it is night, when all the beasts of the forest stir. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear that now, but yeah, it's not just the cats that respond. It's some other creatures that may be about in, witnessing what's going on there. And 110:1 of Dawood, a psalm. The saying of God is a noun and verb to my Lord. Sit at my right hand while I make your enemies your footstool. And that relates to some of this kindred honor and stuff that we're going over here. But Adni is the word here. Community leader. But those are what I would call the black verses of what we're going over. So when I reference that, I'm set the black verses are the tonic verses. The yellow verses are Biblia, which eventually with the Catholic Septuagint is what we have today. Join, and it's not quite the same thing as the tonic. There's some leading things about the translation. 1722, and I, the glory which thou hast given me, have given them, that they may be one as we are one. Kind of tears down a lot of the Trinitarian doctrines, doesn't it? If you realize what's going on there. 19. So John again, 20, verse 1. But on the first of the week, Mary, the Magdalene, comes early in the dark, and it's still being in the tomb, and sees the stone taken away from the tomb. And very interesting that compares into the whole. Well, I mean, that's more about the Easter story, but the reason why Christmas isn't at the start of Yule, it's at the, if you have Yule as 5 days, sometimes the 5th, the sunset of the 25th, sometimes that's going to be the 5th night of Yule. But sometimes 22nd, 23rd, 24th, but anyways, they wait till the point, a few days after the darkest night, then you can more clearly see it. And so to the 25th was pretty much universally considered as Mithra's day, as you would call it. Ephesians 3, but again, I'm not getting into the vicarious thing. I don't support that with any, I'll discuss it, but whether it's the priest doing stuff for you and people paying their priest and all that, or whether it's, some savior entity doing things once and all you have to do is claim it and it's yours. Certainly you can claim belief in things, but like it's not your hero deed. If someone, if you've made a mistake, you're going to have to answer those consequences. But anyways, Ephesians 3:9, and to enlighten all as to what is the fellowship of the mystery which has been hidden from the ages in God. I love how it has the pitchfork at the end there. That's who all things created by Jesus Christ. Well, so responding to that myth, I don't believe that any of us incarnated beings are the actual creator or whatnot of even our own existence. But so 1 Timothy 6:16, 6:16, who alone has immortality, in light dwelling unapproachable, whom did see no one was of men, nor to see is able, to whom honor and might eternal. Amen. Now, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to respond to all these things as they come up, but in the candlelight and all that other stuff, which is, it's for effect. And, this is the Apollonian section. So it's like, but with the other, yeah, you're gonna, see the drama if the program makes its way up. But, it's, you don't know how I feel. You don't know the psychological and, you don't know the sensual side of it for me. You don't know the psychological and the spiritual side of it, but that's fine. Have your own. Share it in the comment section, and if it's not instructions or leading in a right, go ahead and leave those comments too. If you interpret something that I've said differently, that's fine too. A lot of this stuff, just like the one verse in the yellow section, but here we are in the green section. They thought no harm would follow. They were blind and deaf. The singularity of God turned to them in mercy, but many again were blind and deaf. The definitive God is ever watching their actions. Well, Bimma, yeah, okay, so ever observing, taking into observance with what? And taking in the knowledge of it. So it's a lot of these translations are a bit short compared to the meaning, but that's fine. And 6:104 Okay. Kajakum. Okay. Momentous signs have come to you from your Lord. He that sees them shall himself have much to gain, but he who has blinded them shall lose much indeed. I am not your keeper. So the last section, there was a focus more on the increase. The first section, there was a focus on the company and the fact that, it was darkness. And here we're talking about an awareness of these things. The awareness of you, your awareness of it. 937. I'll probably say funny things. Maybe I know what they mean, maybe I don't. Some things I figure out after, but what experience I have, I will try my best to share it. The postponement, 937 is the postponement or intercalculation of sacred months is a grossly impious practice in which the deniers are misguided. They allow 1 year and forbid it the next, so that they may make up for the months which the singularity of God is sanctified, thus making lawful what? The definitive God has forbidden. Their foul acts seem fair to them. Divinity does not guide the believers. Now, Yahdi is, see, they're not taking in the guidance. It's not that God doesn't have the guidance out there, but so particularly Yule is something that they've set a system of months, right? And so a bunch of 28-day months and then this 12-day thing, right, are 13 months or, so some various things like that. I mean, 13 times 28 is, 364, right? Well, you'd still end up with 1 or 2 intercalculatory days. But if you have lunar months, then you don't ever have to do that. The Jews, every 2 or 3 years, every 2 or 3 years, they have an extra month. Some cultures had an extra week. But mainly one of the things that people would do is they would pretend like the days that we have aren't quite, they would make a month's, as the verse said about that. But what else can we say? Yeah, they would pretend like months didn't happen. They would pretend like months were like a month was lucky or unlucky or something like that. But there's I'd talk more about this if there were, if this is part of a conversation with someone else. I don't want to just ramble. 10:5 is, it was he that gave the sun his brightness and the moon her light, ordaining her phases that you may learn to compute the seasons and the years. God created them only to manifest the truth. He makes plain his revelations to men of knowledge. Now, people are going to go all bent out of shape about the gendered language. One, we're not saying that this force is male or female or whatever. It's like people get bent out of shape about Venus. It's like, well, Venus, the mythology or language, it's not saying that the planet is necessarily gender, or that the entities related to that planet are of a particular gender. In some people's mind, that is what happens. But the he term here, which throws a lot of people off. Hua, hua in this case, is a word. It's a pronoun that is used for male and female. So we move on to 11:28. And he said, "Consider my people, if my Lord has revealed to me his will and bestowed on me his grace, though it be hidden from you, can we compel you to accept it against your will?" Now, that's one of the things that we're trying to connect to in regards to what I'm dramatizing here, is that there's an experience that you don't know until you've kind of gone towards or through things. And sort of the sacrifice of the self, giving of one's life and all that. I don't mean you have to necessarily straight up, die in battle or something. It's, but this is this is by consent, right? Your deeds, your beliefs, they are what you personally have chosen. And 48 of 2148 would be walakad mutakin. Okay. And we showed Moses and Aaron the distinction between right and wrong, and gave them a light and an admonition for righteous men. And we truly fear their Lord and dread the terrors of the judgment day. So they're having regard. It's more than just this fear sort of thing. But again, yes, Moses and Aaron were men. Their bodies were, at least you could say that. But we are not, remember, these things aren't saying, oh, the guidance is only for the men. No. I have to deal with a lot of that. So, if I make those comments too much. 22:46 to 48. Have they never journeyed through the land? Have they no hearts to reason with, or ears to hear with? Is it their hearts, not their eyes, that are blind? They bid you to hasten the threatened scourge. God will not fail his promise. Each day of your Lord's is like 1,000 years in your reckoning. And the word God, Allah, is in reference to, God as noun and verb, the astonishing, it's the singular and definitive form word used for God. Anybody who believes in a Godhead, so even some of the polytheists like the Christians, certainly the Bibles in Arabic will use that in John 3:16 and some other passages. Not that, the Quran was agreeing with those sorts of doctrine. But 48, I bore law with many nations teeming through. They were with sin, and in the end I smote them. To me all things shall return. So again, the long period of time, and Rub is not the same Lord term as when we're talking about the Lord of, certain, the Lord of the manor or the province, or, it's not that sort of thing. But certainly connecting to the ancient roots, maybe traveling to check some of that out. That can be very important there. 2866 would be me at layata sa'alun. Okay. On that day, such will be their confusion that they will ask no questions. But those that repent and embrace the faith and do what is right, they hope for salvation. Yeah. Can't just believe, you gotta get it out there and do. And 71 say, think if the God should enshroud you in perpetual night to the day of resurrection, what other entity treated as a God could give you light? Will you not hear? Well, so that concludes the green verses of what we've gone over here. That's the southeast view, more or less. That's the view towards the south. That's the view towards the northeast. Actually, I'm thinking sitting in front of that, you know, with the cut before me, and on the right hand and on the left hand, the sacred bread, and surrounded by coffee. That's the west, I said that. I'm going to, perform this ritual and basically leave the space. We eat, ease, puff, foo, buff, zoo, the are, where it is, puff, fa, buff, za, zave, zed, and some things that can be encoded on sacred circles is the astronomy. So you can line them up with the cardinal directions, the ordinal directions, that sort of stuff, but connecting them to particular stars, sunrises, sunsets, watches of ritual time is important. Russia has a Tatorka, what's that thing? There's Paleolithic sites in the Mysovia, and yeah, scientists are currently saying that it's at least 700,000 years that people have been out there. And there is a settlement, it's called the Devil's Settlement, where a priest that was what happened with the priest? They supposedly made a deal. Yelabuga, Sharkovo, my last, I don't even read Russian, so there are ruins out there, I think. I couldn't find pictures of them. Not that I could show them to you necessarily, but well, there's partial pictures that look there like there may have been a black sun ancient thing out there. But the story goes is that some priest or some entity called a saint made a deal with the priest made a deal with the demon, and the priest wanted a really good church, and the church was supposed to have collapsed because there was a missing cross. But honestly, the cross has little to do with the cross is a very ancient symbol that doesn't necessarily connect to Mithraic sorts of cults. Because in the legend, oh, the cross is like there was a missing cross, and then the thing tumbled to the ground. Some silliness of that. But there's the white being and the black being, as you could say it, and this black sun, just like round towers, are thought to sanctify the surrounding areas. They're thought to, it's a focus of power, and it can represent, the black flame, the animation of one's own will. And you may essentially get this dialectic, this speech, this way that comes upon you. Now, I'm explaining stuff and using word explanations that go beyond a particular word that I've chosen to use. But, you can enact the initiation rite that I've mentioned in the program 2 Sundays ago. And a lot of the spirit of what goes on, darkening and shamanic practices and goals about that vary. And you may want to, before doing what you do, you could charge yourself up and relax, or just get yourself ready for what you're doing. Now, if you have a regular daily or multiple daily ritual practices, obviously the times and preparations on the way kind of help with that sort of thing. But there's obviously alchemical practices and stuff that can go on here. And, a lot of the, certainly trying to be numinous, but a lot of the things that I talk about, I don't necessarily take it like those groups. And if you pay attention, I'm obviously having different intentions and beliefs with a lot of this stuff, just like the verses that I shared. There's certain roles of different members. I was hoping to have a mistress or a matriarch figure for this ritual, but that did not pan out. And certainly, however you're doing this, mean your word. And there may be things to your particular order or community that you keep amongst your order or community. Different individual aspects. I try to involve different levels of my being. You've seen in before and other stuff, some people get all bent out of shape because of a rainbow or something. But like, for example, one rainbow that I've used quite a bit, you got the sensual, you got the emotional, you got the mental, and the etheric, the auric sort of thing is probably the better way to say it, instead of intuition. Intuition exists, but and different spiritual and soul levels that you involve yourself in. Alchemical symbolism beyond the 7, you have salt, mercury, sulfur, definitely. And each of these operations, I try to make it an initiation. And so this wheel being broken into 4 and the wheel being broken into 12, there are other variations of the black sun or the and the swastika and stuff like this. Again, it's not a racist symbol unless you're racist. The NSDAP did not turn it into a racist symbol, so let's drop that nonsense. And I don't mean affiliation with them or any, you know, again, I'm not saying the other word because that's a racial slur, but the neo, you know, so 4 and 12 seem to be the ones to choose. And both of these go further back than what civilization is typically deemed to be.